Three powerful behavioral interview techniques that you probably haven't heard before include merging, sidebarring, and breadcrumbing. First, let's cover merging. Merging is where we take two or more stories from our story library and we tell them in a merged form. Telling a merged story allows us to show better signal strength, scope over scale and time, which is a specific thing that behavioral interviewers are looking for at the Staff Plus level. They're looking for multi-quarter or even multi-year impact. It allows us to show stronger business results. It allows us to tell stories we otherwise wouldn't tell, because some stories that we would tell might have an impressive signal or overcoming an important obstacle, but the business result is not super impactful if you take that one story in isolation. But merging it into a group, you can share the results across the group. And so you're able to tell that story and get the signals out, even if that particular one doesn't have a strong result, because the group has a strong result. And then finally, it allows your overall result to be even stronger, because in some cases, one story has a loose thread that merging it together with the group will actually cover and make a more complete and impactful narrative. Now, you might be concerned by merging these stories, doesn't this take up a large amount of time? And one of the benefits of merging stories and then practicing that merged form is that you can actually consolidate the time so that the merged form of the story, say that I'm merging two stories, it doesn't take twice as long if you practice it in a merged form. Now we can also turn to our second technique, which is sidebarring. And so sometimes a story, whether it's merged or not, could relate to another story that you actually don't want to tell for the purpose of time. And this is where you can sidebar that discussion. For example, I worked at a company where I implemented a structured interview process. I did some hiring things and I managed out an individual contributor. Those are related to people management. And a question might come, well, why were you managing people? What was the actual project that you were doing? And I would sidebar that discussion if I'm trying to signal things around people management, mentorship, the ability to hire, identify, and grow talent. So I might say, we were working on this project, but the details of the project aren't that important. And I'll sidebar that discussion. Feel free to ask questions if you want to dive in, but I'm going to focus on the people side of the story. Okay, so that's how we can sidebar discussion, and that's another way to save time. Besides practicing a merged story, you can also directly sidebar scope. The third powerful technique is breadcrumbing. If there are things that you may want to talk about, instead of taking up the time eagerly, which can be a negative impact on the time that you have for the behavioral interview, you can hint at those and you can actually steer the follow-up questions that your interviewer will have. So as a matter of practice in the behavioral interview, it's normal for the interviewer to ask some follow-up questions. But wouldn't it be great for you as the candidate if you could control the follow-up questions and better yet, have prepared answers to those follow-up questions? Well, you can do this with breadcrumbing. Earlier, I gave the example of sidebarring the technical side of a question. I call it sidebarring because I'm not particularly interested in having that conversation, but in a way, this is a breadcrumb. I could go ahead and see I've hinted to the interviewer that they can ask about this, and I could go ahead and prepare an answer for if they say, yeah, in fact, do tell me about the actual technical project that was going on related to this individual that you managed out. So there I've left a breadcrumb, and the key here is that I want to prepare ahead of time to answer that question. But you can also do this with things that you're not sidebarring. I could breadcrumb, let's say that in one case, I raised the quality bar on a project. And I could say, I did a number of things. I want to really dive into the way that I improved type coverage. But if you want, we can also talk some more about logging enhancements that I made that are also kind of interesting. So that would be a breadcrumb. I'm planting the seed, I'm planting the idea to the interviewer that I'm going to here be brief with my time and I'm going to tell you this angle on the story and get to a particular result. But you can come back and dig deeper, and there's actually more interesting stuff to talk about and potentially more positive results that I can brag about. Again, doing this is a better alternative than leaving the control of the follow-up questions to the interviewer, because I actually expect what he's going to follow up and ask if he does take the bait on that breadcrumb and say, yes, actually tell me about the observability improvements too. And I want to do that not just as a matter of control, but also as a time management technique. Because if I did go on the spiel about, well, we added this sort of logging and it helped us troubleshoot this other issue and got this other positive result, that could take a couple minutes to explain. And so breaking it up into a breadcrumb, it has a double benefit. It has the benefit that You get to avoid unknown follow-up questions. And it also has the benefit that you look good because you're getting to the key result that you initially wanted to communicate in a timely fashion. You're giving the interviewer a chance to go back and forth if they wanted to clarify anything, and then you're able to resume the discussion for even more impact, but you didn't go into a monologue. You broke it up into these breadcrumbs. Hope this was interesting. Follow for more.